Doing another upgrade on the Girsan Regard. What we're doing today is I'm swapping out the hammer spring for a 14-pound Wilson Combat hammer spring. I know the Beretta has a 20-pound by default. I'm assuming the Girsan has the same, so we're going to lighten that up a bit. And the second item is the slide stop. This is off of Brownells. It is sold as a slide stop lever long 92. Not sure why they give it the long definition, but this is basically what you need for this particular pistol. So I'm going to take the grips off and get going on this. So firstly, we do need to take the grips off. These are custom grips that I got off Amazon. They are Cool Hand is a brand. Just want to take a look at them. Definitely pretty, make it look better than the flat black ones. And they're about 35 bucks, I believe. The grip screws are a hair long. I did have to leave it backed off just a hair so it didn't interfere with the magazine. I plan on filing them down or dremeling them off at some point here. This set did come with screws and little O-rings as well, which is nice. Now these were not a perfect fit. Sorry, just make sure I don't lose the O-rings. I did have to shave down the inside of these a hair. Basically I just took a knife blade and shaved a little bit in here and a little bit in here to make them fit the Girsan's bolt pattern. Let me get the other side. Managed to accidentally remove my magazine release in the process, but pop that right back in because we don't need to have that off. But if you want to see what a Girsan magazine release looks like, it is very similar to the Beretta one. Alright, so when I was taking the grips off, I accidentally knocked off my magazine catch. I did manage to get it back in. I'm sure you can find somebody else who can show you a better way to put it back in than I finally got it back in there, so we'll just forget that ever happened. Okay, so we have the grips off. The next step is going to be removing the hammer spring, which is located underneath this lanyard here. Requires removing this pin, which I'll have to drive out with a mallet and a punch. Just want to do one last feel test on the hammer spring. I mean, it's really not bad now, but I figured dropping it down to a 14 might improve the trigger pull slightly, and also it will have less resistance coming back because it's the spring that holds this hammer out here. So I'm going to take I'm going to leave the slide on just to give it a little bit more weight here as I'm driving out this pin. It doesn't flop around as much. And again, I do not have professional tools here. I have a punch and something to whack it with. That seems to have got it going there. Good, and the pin is starting to work its way out this side here. And let me just brace this. One day I will have a rubber mallet and a block and all this fancy stuff. Okay, we have the pin out, leaving the punch in to keep it retained momentarily. And I'm going to take the punch out, pushing in on the lanyard holder. There we go. And it looks like my hand probably obscured most of that. Alright, so there is the spring retainer or lanyard loop. And the spring should just fall right out of its hole. There's our old spring. Oops. Put the old one. Keep the old one in this container for spare parts. Now you want to make sure you do get this over the hammer rod when you put the spring back in. Pause and grab a flashlight. You may be able to see in there is a little guide rod. You just want to make sure the hammer spring goes over that rod and not beside the rod, because there is enough room to do this wrong. Okay, that is on. And put our lanyard loop retainer back in there. Get my pin. That is not a very professional method of doing it, but it works. Of course, neither is banging on it with the back end of a screwdriver, but gets the job done. And we'll set this down the rest of the way. Alright. And we'll just give this even one more whack to get it even. Alright, so we have replaced the hammer spring. Pretty quick operation. Okay. A function test here, and it appears to be a no. Cock this. Okay, apparently something went wrong there. I'm going to assume that I did not get that lined up properly, and we'll do this again. Oh, and I was actually over the top of the hammer spring. I did not have it captive. I guess I'll make a couple of mistakes so you don't have to. Okay, so after installing the hammer pin incorrectly, I just have a punch in here at the moment just to verify that I have it right before I take this all apart again. And I do have proper action here. Really can't tell if that's any heavier or lighter. It feels a little bit lighter, but that could just be perception. So now I just need to drive the pin back in here using my assortment of caveman tools, and we'll work on the slide saw. Just going to back the pin off a bit. I did notice the Girsan roll pins seem to be very soft metal. I used a pair of pliers to pull this one out, and it did manage to ding it up fairly well. I'm just going to back that up a hair. Reassemble and give it a quick function test. Okay. Double action. It might just be perception, but that does seem to be lighter. Of course, the risk is that using a lighter spring you may end up with light primer strikes, so hopefully we don't run into that. If I do, I can just swap the old spring back out. It wasn't too horrible of an ordeal. So next we're going to do the slide stop. Get this guy out next and swap it out with the Beretta factory slide swap. So pull the slide off again. To remove the slide stop, and I've never done this forward, so it's going to be fun doing it backwards here. You can see a tiny spring right here. That is what is retaining this. You want to lift this up above the piece of metal here and just kind of wiggle that forward. And right now it is most of the way out here. And keep your fingers around that spring so it doesn't disappear on you. Alright. And as you can see, maybe you can see that spring goes in that hole there. So I'm just going to take the spring off the shaft, leave it in its little hole for now. And let's see if we can compare these two and see what they look like side by side. See what we have for differences between the Girsan slide stop and the Beretta slide stop. If you hear the gurgling sounds of goodness in the background, my wife is making a pot of coffee, which is much needed right now. Alright, just doing a quick comparison like I did with the extractors on the Girsan part and the Beretta part. Girsan is this side here. Oops. And this is the Beretta part. Dimensions pretty much the same. From the top they at least look identical. Flip them up. Okay. Looks like this part here, oops, sorry, trying to focus through the camera lens, is cut a bit differently on the Beretta than it is on the Girsan. Not sure if that makes a difference or not, and there is a bit more of a belly swell on this one, on this part here. Sorry, I'm not sure what the individual parts of the slide stop are called. There is a bit more of a swell here, and the angles on, I'm guessing that's a magazine catch there, that's a bit higher than this guy here. So it leaves this way. And again, this is the Girsan, this is the Beretta. See, a bit more of a gap there. Alright, well, we'll just put it in and we'll see if this makes any difference. Okay, got a bit of a do-over here. I was putting all the videos back together and I discovered that the video of me putting the slide stop back on did not process or save. So I'm just going to take this thing off and put it back on one more time, because that was the whole point of me doing this. So again, take it off, push it forward or upwards beyond the piece of metal, and just kind of wiggle it. Get this in the right angle here. Just kind of wiggle it out. Sorry, I'm watching myself do this on the camera instead of looking at it. Alright, that is now free. Okay. Put it back in. You want to make sure that that spring is in the little catch there, which it is now. Put your finger to retain the spring. Right, then you will put the hook into the hole above the trigger pin. Insert the pin into the hole thusly. Pivot this so it is above the piece of metal here. Push back in, you'll hear a little click. Let it go back down. It is now reassembled. Very simple. Okay, just going to put the slide back on. It's back on. And throw an empty mag in there. It functions, it releases, and the weapon functions. Sorry for the continuity error, back to where we were. Alright, have the Girsan reassembled, new slide stop on there. Already did the extractor in the last video, and again, it's probably just perception because I did it today, but I'm assuming, no, my perception is the hammer spring is lighter, or the trigger pull is lighter. I don't have one of those gauges to really tell you for sure, but it seems to be easier. I'm going to go out and see if any of this made any difference in using the 30 round magazines, which is why I got this all started this way, because somebody commented on one of my videos and said, if you change the slide stop to a Beretta factory slide stop, it'll run these 30 round magazines just fine. Again, never an issue with the 20 round magazines, only with these Korean 30 round magazines, so we'll see if that actually made a difference. Okay, so essentially no change with the slide stop using the cheap Korean magazines. As I was starting to suspect, it's just not going to like these 30 round K-mags. Again, gun is pretty much flawless with my 20 round mech GARs. There's just something different about these magazines where it does not want to run with a 30 round magazine. It's a bit late at night for me to run off a full 20 round magazine to prove that these work fine. Actually, I think I heard some return fire after I did my 3 rounds before it failed on me again. Again, it just failed to extract. So I'll wrap this one up. Hopefully you at least learned how to do a hammer spring and do a slide stop. Hopefully this helps somebody. Have a great day.